What's up, dudes? Max here. Finally have an opportunity to talk about this one and show off a little bit of footage that I was able to capture at the PlayStation Experience, playing some direct capture of Street Fighter V Arcade Edition. Now, this was somewhat limited. The only access we had was the arcade mode that allowed us to go through the arcade mode a little bit and not get access to any of the bonus stages. No versus mode in this version I was able to record from, but we did get a chance to play with a couple of characters and mess around with their V-triggers and give you an overall idea of how the game kind of is in comparison to what it is before. And I just wanted to give my 2 cents on going into Street Fighter V Arcade Edition, as it is looking pretty good for the future of the game. Now, today comes as a very interesting one because there's a lot of balance changes that are being announced tonight that are going through with a lot of characters, a lot of nerfs, some buffs, some universal changes. And the biggest universal changes seem to be that V-trigger, or comboing into V-trigger, like through a V-trigger cancel, is going to scale twice as hard, and that's going to affect a lot of characters and their damage output especially. So some will be happy about that, some won't be happy about that. That's a pretty big system overall nerf. And another big change to throws, where apparently you might get one more frame to tech throws. This is all kind of flying in right now, and it's technically leaked, and it's being translated as we speak, so I'm just kind of waiting to see what happens to a few of the characters I really want to play, which is like Ziku, Akuma, maybe a little bit of Ken. And then when we get further into Season 3, I definitely want to check out Segura, Sagat, as well as Cody. But talking about my experience here on the show floor playing these matches, you're not going to see anything too crazy because the AI was extremely turned down. I was pretty much just waiting for them to hit me. But I did get a chance to mess around with Nash's V-trigger, Akuma's V-trigger, and Ken's V-trigger. And I'll say for Akuma and Ken, they're very flashy looking and they lead to some different things. Ken's essentially is a Shin Ryuken that did very little damage. It's cool looking, you can mash the buttons to make it do more hits, but it does make a lot more sense now that these patch notes have dropped that comboing into his Shin Ryuken was doing piss poor damage, like extremely low. Almost to the point of which, why would I ever use this instead of V-Trigger 1, which seems to be really good and really enhances some stuff. So that's kind of the overall impression I got with Akuma as well. Akuma allows you to tack on like an extra move or an extra EX move at the end of one of his specials, and it takes off a pretty big chunk of his V-Trigger bar. It's interesting, like you can get uppercut and then go into Tatsu. You can go into, it's really similar how if you go into his EX version of the Demon Flip, and then you do an EX Tatsu at the end of that, it's sort of like that, but it applies to a bunch of different special moves. And I have a couple of examples of it within this video. It's neat, it's really cool, but the biggest, worst problem about it is that you lose the Raging Demon. So, like we said, we didn't get a lot of time with this, we didn't get a lot of time to mess around to see if other things were there, but he definitely couldn't Demon win in V-Trigger. So I'm very curious. Like some of these V-triggers don't seem as good as they are for the original ones that some characters have. At least the characters I'm interested in. Nash has a very genuinely interesting one because he can cancel into it from on block or on hit special moves. Like he can go directly into this thing, and you can combo into it too, albeit pretty tight timing, and I never got to show it off. But he goes for either like a big ass overhead thing or a low. I think all the V-triggers look really cool, and I think Nash's might be the one of the few characters I did get to play, because we only had like 20 minutes, that was actually kind of awesome, and I think will be a very effective one for the character. But in terms of Ken and Akuma, I'm not too sure how good they are going to be. If we want to talk about overall changes for Street Fighter V, like how does the game feel compared to what I remember playing, which was mostly back in like mid-2016 when I reached Platinum, it doesn't feel entirely different. I know there are some big universal changes like throw loops largely being removed from the game and overall throw damage being reduced and some things like that that is now being revealed as the patch notes are coming up. But it's very similar to how I remember Street Fighter 4 happening, and then Super Street Fighter 4 happened, and I was really expecting some giant, like, drastic changes moving forward with the game. Adding V-triggers seems to be the very big, drastic mechanical change. Everything else is small, balance adjustments to some characters get some new special moves, and that is genuinely cool. It is going to feel like a fresh game because a fresh coat of paint to a game that's been around for a couple of years will actually do a lot for it. That'll bring many people in, not to mention the expansive amount of modes and everything else that's supposed to be in the game. The things that have me the most excited about Street Fighter V right now, once again, the giant arcade expansion I think should be a lot of fun. There's apparently a hidden boss that's in the game too that has been leaked according to some data miners, specifically saying that Gil is a character in the game However, he did not show up on a player list instead of an AI list, so he's actually a CPU-style character that you're most likely going to have to fight against, and I'm very much looking forward to that. I think adding new bosses and interesting boss fights and stuff like that is some of the most fun aspects of Capcom arcade modes, and I am very much looking forward to it. Other than that, I'm just waiting for some characters to really capture my interest. So far, the ones that I like the most in Street Fighter V in terms of gameplay has probably been Akuma, so I think I'm most excited to see what is going to change with him moving into Season 3, but I expect it not to be extremely positive. It's most likely going to be nerfs because Akuma's had a lot of big tournament success in the past year or two, so I'm a little nervous about that one. I'm really curious to see what Ziku has, but apparently he only has one adjustment that has been made to his gameplay. And according to some, I didn't get a chance to mess with it too much, but his V-Trigger 2 doesn't seem to be as good as his V-Trigger 1, but we're still waiting on that. I really would love to like Ziku a lot more because he is friggin' Strider, and I do think he looks awesome, and he animates amazingly. But something about his gameplay just didn't catch me. Like, no matter how pretty a video game is or how gorgeous a character is, sometimes if something just doesn't spark gameplay-wise with me, I'm not invested into spending that time. Which I guess makes sense because Marvel Infinite is kind of ugly in many ways, but gameplay is super good, so I just keep playing that one. So I wouldn't expect anything insane. Like, the best aspect about this is that this is going to bring in a lot of Street Fighter V players that decided to either jump ship early on, trade in the game, if not never even invest because the launch of Street Fighter V was as poor as it was. So Street Fighter V Arcade Edition seems to be remedying a lot of that. Not to mention if you still have the game, it's a free update and things like that. But for me personally, like at the end of it, one of the things that got me the most excited in this game were those extra crazy ass costumes. The one where we saw like Nash in a Captain Commando costume. There was like a Star Gladiator costume for Chun-Li. I was like, what the hell is going on? I am just actively waiting for, you know, the opportunity to see some other characters like Ken in a Dante costume. Like, I think that's really cool. I love the pantheon of Capcom characters even more than inherent Street Fighter characters, so that's awesome. Once again, I'd gripe about Marvel Infinite, but I'm going to hold off because this is a Street Fighter V video. I think seeing those characters back and modeled by Capcom instead of being mods by the community is really friggin' cool, and considering that that is stuff that you can earn in-game, that's also cool, but I want to see how creative they get with that stuff, because that is a very interesting incentive for them to put into the game, which is a whole bunch more costumes, and costumes sell, man. They make your character look a little bit different, and if it's still your character through and through and they got a new costume, that is one of the bigger things that I think has kept Street Fighter V afloat for so long, is its digital sales and the 30-some-odd costumes for Chun-Li. But I think it's a bright future for Street Fighter V overall. This game is looking to be in a better place than it ever has been. I am very curious how the adjustments made to the system and the characters and maybe online matchmaking or something is going to get some kind of an adjustment to make it easier for everyone to jump back into the game, because like a lot of other people, I'm going to be jumping back into Street Fighter V with hopefully a new outlook on what the future of the game can be, because a lot of the gameplay aspects back in like Season 2 and Season 2.5 didn't leave me super like thrilled or excited to immediately jump back in, and with so many fighting games coming out last year, there was very few reasons for me to jump back and play Street Fighter V every once in a while outside of a new character. So what I'm really saying is that I just want to feel that spark. I just want to feel that drive just to keep playing this game and to want to keep going at it, because there's always a reason for me to go back and like play KOF 14 or Tekken or Marvel Infinite or any of the other fighting games that have come out that I've loved over the past few years, and there's just so many of them that are really damn good right now. I hope Street Fighter V, in terms of its gameplay and what you can do with the characters, allows you to get a little bit more creative and makes things just overall play quite a bit different than what we have been playing for the past 2 years. So that's what I'm looking forward to the most with SF5, and let's hope some of that does happen, because my expectations are pretty flatlined right now. I'm not expecting the world, and I'm not going to be extremely disappointed if it doesn't work out, because there's a lot of stuff happening this year as well. It's going to be friggin' crazy, but I'm looking forward to playing Street Fighter V all over again, and hopefully learning some new characters that are brand new in Season 3 and having them just be ridiculously fun to play. Let's just hope that it's just ridiculously fun to play when it does come out. As always, guys, thank you a ton for watching. I'll be back with more Street Fighter V updates and the continuation of the Sakura legacy as we lead up to Sakura's release in the game, which is just going to be in about a week and a half to 2 weeks. Thank you a ton. My name is Max, and I'll see you next time.